past we do explore, 19th century lore, ghosts and whispers in the night, in Cardiff's dimming light. Bobby Anton take us through tales of the Doctor true, gaseous fiends in olden dress, mysteries we address. Timey, wimey, rewind show, where did the spirits go? Listen close to tales they find from deep in Doctor's mind. Rose and Doctor save the day in their very own way. From the rift across they fly to see the spirits cry. Victorian's a haunting place, full of terror and grace, with Bobby and Tim at helm, guide us through.
Hello and welcome to Timey, Wimey Rewind, brought to you by Cult Classic Society, a podcast adventure in space and time where we aim to watch and break down every episode of Doctor Who ever. Introducing me, your host, an enthralling wordsmith with a curious mind and the power to captivate people, Bobby Davies, and my co-host, a shuffling, gaunt, reanimated corpse, Timothy Martini.
Hey Bobby, how you doing?
Oh, good. How are you, dude?
Honestly, I love these every time. I can't even get mad at them.
I do love the idea that you're just waiting to see how I'm going to insult you, but also something from the episode.
Yeah, I want to see, like, what do you compare me to?
A shuffling, reanimated corpse this time.
Yeah, there have been some mornings on the weekends where I'm definitely like that, so it's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Hungover Timothy is definitely feeling that.
It's a sight to behold sometimes. But no, I am doing good because at the time of the recording, the new Linkin Park album just dropped.
Yeah, you're obsessed.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just because, like, it's just amazing that they're finally back after, like, so long, especially with everything that happened with Chester. But I think it's, like, just good to, like, see just a big part of my childhood, like, come back and actually produce a good album.
Your childhood, their best album came out before you were born.
What, Hybrid Theory?
Yeah, I know. I'm making you younger than you actually are there. But you were still only about, like, 3 when it came out.
Yeah. But Linkin Park was the band that got me into rock in general, so I think it's just, like, great to see them come back, and, like, now they're doing Wembley Stadium next year, which is going to be fantastic.
I'm impressed to see if they're going to sell that out, you know. I know they've got a lot of other bands on the bill, but...
So they got 2 bands on with them for Wembley, and it's Spirit Box and JPEG Mafia, and Spirit Box are quite big up-and-comers right now.
Yeah, but I mean, what's Wembley with just a stage? Is it 90,000?
Yeah.
Plus? Yeah. I'm interested to see. I mean, depending on ticket price, I may well go, although...
I saw the ticket prices because the Linkin Park pre-sale came out this morning.
Oh, yeah.
So it's £150 like near the front, £100 at the back, and then for seated it's between 50 and 150.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to go to that. I don't like the new stuff enough already.
Yeah.
And although the new singers, she can sing, she's not, like, she doesn't have the raw emotion that Chester brought to it. It's why Linkin Park did so well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's it's opinion. It's all preference. You're loving it, so you go and enjoy yourself, Timothy.
I will, and I will enjoy Sleep Token at Download, because that was a fucking shocker.
Oh, yeah.
Sleep Token are headlined in Download.
Oh, good for them. And the Slam Dunk Festival lineup got announced as well, and that's looking pretty good. So
yeah,
festivals looking good next
festivals, year.
Yeah. I am in a good mood. Well, not in a good mood, but I've been enjoying the new Pokemon trading card game on mobile. It's very good, very good fun.
Yeah, one of my mates have been, like, playing that religiously.
Your mate's a good lad. So, we're jumping into episode 3 of the first series of the New Who, the revival, The Unquiet Dead. We're heading off to the land of my forefathers. We're in Wales. Actually, in Wales. Look, I wore a Wrexham shirt just because we're in Wales.
You dressed appropriately for it.
I did. This episode was written by Mark Gatiss, the first, or Gatiss as apparently it's meant to be pronounced, the first of the New Who era not to be written by Russell T Davies, directed by Euros Lyn, the same person who directed the last episode. Broadcast Saturday, April the 9th, 2005. Viewing figures of 8.86 million in the UK. That is up nearly a million on End of the World. So it's fallen between End of the World and Rose.
Oh, wow.
Was released with Rose and End of the World on the vanilla box set, like we've discussed in the past, with no extras. Then the Series 1 box set. Then on the non-upscale Blu-rays in 2013. And then on the actually upscale Blu-rays in 2023. Which is how I've been watching things.
Nice.
I still need to... I think I told you about this. The clip on it broke when I dropped the case.
Yeah.
I still need to swap the case out. Tim. Come on, Tim. Let's see if you name all kind of 60 people, including extras, who are in the cast. Let's go. Because I know what you're like.
I got a handful of people. Obviously not including the main two. We've got Alan David as Gabriel Sneed. We got Eve Miles as Gwyneth. We got Simon Callow as Charles Dickens. And we got Zoe Thorne as the voices to Gelf.
Oh, you didn't go mad. Other ones you've put in, everyone playing all the aliens that were background characters and stuff. I've got a bit more depth on those main three. Obviously not including the Doctor and Rose. As you said, Alan David playing Gabriel Sneed. David hasn't done anything huge, right? He's never had a huge role, but he's been a working actor since 1973.
Wow.
He's had recurring roles, a small recurring role in Coronation Street back in the 70s. He was a member of the main cast of Green Grass. You know what that is?
No.
It's an Only Fools and Horses spin-off.
Oh, what?
Starring Boise. So it's Boise and Marlene go move to the country, and he's in every episode of that.
Oh, wow.
He is also, this is classic as well, Gavin and Stacey. He is one of the, I think he's the one who basically doesn't speak any English in Barry, in Wales, in Gavin and Stacey.
Oh.
When they bump into him in the street and he refuses to speak English, just speaks Welsh. I think that's who he is. But yeah, he's in Gavin and Stacey. So he does all these constant bit parts. Been a working actor for a very long time. Interestingly enough, Gatiss wanted Alan David because he actually grew up watching him. I think he was in stuff like Cannon and Ball and things like that, comedy things that he would always just crop up in. And he just knew who he was and liked him as an actor. Then he said we've got Eve Miles playing Gwyneth. Obviously, the big thing is she goes on to play Gwen Cooper in Torchwood. Russell clearly really likes her. In fact, there were scenes that needed to be added to bulk up the time on this episode, and they were written with her in because he liked her performance so much. She's been playing Gwen in audio formats, still up to, I think last year there was a new one released with her playing Gwen.
Yeah, and there's been constant rumblings of a Torchwood revival, with her leading the charge.
I mean, if anyone's going to lead now with everything, background-wise, It should be her. Then she's done some video game voice work. She's in Dragon Age 2 as well, which is interesting.
Oh, wow.
Then you got Simon Callow, who plays Charles Dickens. Now, this is interesting. Callow's, he's been around since the mid-70s. He's a British staple, but he's played Dickens 5 times before this. And he's actually a bit of an authority on Dickens as a person as well as his work. And we'll get into it a bit more later, but he's, Callow's been in loads, in 4 Weddings at the Funeral, Shakespeare in Love. He's also in Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2. So,
What?
He gets around. Bro gets around.
That's such a random one.
Things happening in the real world. So, we've gone over 2005 a lot since we started. So I'm just going to focus on the setting. 1869.
I've actually got a note about what happened on the day of release of this episode.
Oh, go on. You know what? I decided, I adamantly decided not to look at 2005 because we've just done 2 episodes where I talked about 2005 a lot.
Well, on April 9th, 2005, the day this episode came out, Charles and Camilla got married.
Well, I don't care about that.
The US #1 song was Candy Shop.
Nice.
Your favourite song was still the #1 in the UK.
Fuck me. Go back to Amarillo, you pricks. Yeah. Well done for picking up that, because I was just there's a lot of repetition going on, and there's actually a few new things in there that I didn't pick up, so thank you, Tim.
No worries.
Well, in the real world, in the setting of the episode, 1869, big year. Ulysses S. Grant is sworn in as the US president. Big times, new US president. The Cutty Sark, which is now in Greenwich, moored at Greenwich permanently as I think it's a museum, I think. My friend used to live literally under the bow in those houses.
Oh, wow.
It's insane, right? That was launched for the first time, actually set sail for the first time. But, Tim, most importantly, this is a big one, right? In Drury Lane in London, the very first Sainsbury's was opened. I know. I know.
An icon.
It's no Wimpy, who we mentioned before. We're still interested in getting them to sponsor this podcast. But Sainsbury's, big deal. Right, enough stupidity. Let's talk about the plot of this fucking episode.
It's not stupidity. Sainsbury's is a British icon. Have you ever shown? I've actually spoken to Americans when it comes to it, and they call it Sainsbury's.
Oh well, that's just dumb.
Yeah. You got to punch them at that point.
Well, they just can't read clearly.
Yeah.
Have you? My favourite thing about Sainsbury's is that posh uni students. Apparently, this started with posh uni students anyway. If there's a big Sainsbury's in the town you go to uni in, they call it the Mainsbury's, which is beautiful. I actually like that.
It's
like big Tesco and little Tesco for Extra and whatever the other one's called, Express. But Mainsbury's for a big Sainsbury's is a...
That's actually good.
We're all stories in the end. Just make it a good one, eh?
Let's jump into a plot breakdown, Timothy. You want to take us away? You can start.
It opens up in the funeral home owned by Mr. Sneed, and they're putting away a body of Mrs. Pierce, and her grandson is there. And Sneed gives him a moment just to be with his grandma. But all of a sudden, a blue vapor enters her body, and she then kills her grandson and wanders the streets of Wales. I forgot Cardiff. Yes, where else would it be? It wouldn't be Swansea. But then at that point we cut...
It's an interesting fact you say that I'll bring to you later.
We then cut to the Ninth Doctor and Rose, and the Doctor's like, well, I've taken you to the future, now I'll take you to the past. And they're originally aiming for Naples on Christmas Eve in 1860. And I just realised I didn't say what the year was. It's 1869 in Cardiff.
Yes, that's where they land. The Undertaker, when the body comes up, says, we've got another one. So this is obviously a recurring thing. It's not a first time happenings. And after we see the Doctor and Rose, you see Mr. Sneed and his assistant, Gwyneth, played by Eve Miles, Alan David, talking about the incident and that they're going to go look for... I can't remember. I know. You know what? This body is given a name, and I didn't write it down. I just kept calling her the corpse.
Mrs. Pierce.
Mrs. Pierce. They're going to go look for Mrs. Pierce. TARDIS lands, and Rose has a moment of realisation that they kind of... All these one-time moments, so like Christmas, 1960 in Naples, only happened once. And it's gone, and it's done. But she can go to them now, because she knows the Doctor. And she goes to go outside, and the Doctor's like, you can't go out there, you'll cause a riot. And he calls her Barbarella, which is a great little sci-fi reference. And he gives her some real convoluted directions to the wardrobe, which is a kind of... That's almost an Easter egg, because it's happened 3 times in the past of Doctor Who, where they're because obviously the TARDIS is so sprawling and grand, they go, oh, down that way, to the left, to the right, past the swimming pool, all that.
Yeah.
It's a recurring gag.
So while Rose is getting chased, we cut back to Sneed and Gwyneth, and this is where we realise that there might be something a bit unique about Gwyneth, because she's able to locate where Mrs. Pierce's body is walking towards, and she's walking towards a theatre with a very eccentric man giving a performance, and that's when we cut to backstage a very despondent Charles Dickens, who is just down in the dumps, as most historical figures are when the Doctor shows up.
Yeah, he says his imagination's grown stale and he's alone on Christmas, not with his family. Bless him.
Oh, bless him. So this is when the Rose and the Doctor leave the TARDIS, and this is when the Doctor realises they're not in Naples.
You're also missing a key bit of flirtation. Rose comes out in a Victorian dress, and the Doctor says she looks beautiful, and then kind of pulls it back and says, for a human.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that later, just like as a whole
Okay.
development of their relationship kind of thing.
It's an important plot point, Timothy.
So yeah, as they're walking down the street, they realise, what the Doctor realises, they're not in Naples, it's not 1960s. And Rose's like, I don't mind. It's like, we're in Cardiff. She goes, oh.
Fucking like 150 miles away from home.
As Charles Dickens is giving a one-man show about a ghost, that's when the blue light from Mrs. Pierce emanates and starts scaring everyone. And in that moment, the Doctor, Rose, Sneed, and Gwyneth all run in at the exact same time.
The Doctor comes running in because they're all screaming, and obviously the Doctor looks a bit bored walking around the streets of Cardiff, and then screaming. He goes, "That's more like it," and goes running into the theatre. And he immediately asks Dickens where the light came from, and he's like, "Oh, you're the guy who did this." He's like, "No, not me." The corpse kind of collapses as the light leaves, and Sneed and Gwyneth grab the body and go to take her away, and Rose notices and says, "I'll get them," and she chases after them. And this is where Rose gets knocked out with chloroform and thrown in the back of a hearse along with the body. The Doctor comes running out, runs to a stagecoach and says, "After that stagecoach," and Dickens is like, "No, that's mine, like, what are you doing?" And we get a kind of back and forth between the Doctor and Dickens, where the Doctor finally realises who he is. Then he says he's a fan, and Dickens is like, "What the hell does that mean?"
Yeah. It's like, how do you keep one cool?
He lists off a lot of his favourite works, and then he also criticises one. He's like, "I thought you were supposed to be my fan." He's like, "Hey, can't you take criticism?" But then the driver's like, "Do you want me to get rid of him?" And as he says that, the Doctor's like, "Oh, you're a genius." And Dickens is like, No, just he can stay. He can stay. Keep giving me compliments. He can stay. The Doctor talks Dickens around to the adventure of saving Rose. At the funeral home, Sneed has put Rose in a room with the corpses, and we see Sneed talking down to Gwyneth again and again. He calls her like stupid girl and stuff. Dickens and the Doctor arrive at the funeral home, knocking on the door, and now fucking Charlie Dickens is on this, man. He's caught, like, he's like telling Gwyneth to go get the boss, then pushing past her when she says no. As they're kind of searching the house, the corpses reanimate, and Rose obviously freaks out, screams. The Doctor can hear, but as the time he's like hearing her, he's also listening to the pipes. He's like, "There's something in the gas pipes that isn't right." But then he hears Rose, and he's like, "Oh shit, let's go get her." The Doctor bursts in, kicks the door open, and saves Rose from the two Gelf-animated corpses, and pulls Rose towards him, and she goes, "Who's your friend?" And he goes, "Charles Dickens." And she's like, "Oh, all right then." As in, I think she, like, the way it comes off to me is she thinks he's being sarky, that he's not actually Charles Dickens.
So the way I saw it was more like oh, of course, like...
You bumped into Charles Dickens, of course you have.
Yeah, because like he's already told her like a bunch of stories about like people he's met in the past,
Like famous people, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just assuming she's thinking, oh, of course, like Charles Dickens is going to be here as you're saving me from what she thinks are zombies at this point.
Mm-hmm. The next scene I really love, because I don't love that after the build-up she's had in the last couple of episodes, the only time we've seen Rose kind of come near being like a damsel in distress was when she was locked in a room and the sun was going to kill her.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel too damsel in distress. It's not like she's been held captive by a man, and that is what happens here. And I don't really like that as a plot point. But what I do like is in the next scene, she fucking goes in.
Yeah.
She basically, like, if this was an adult, like, entertainment, she'd be like, "Who the fuck do you think you are?"
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like really weaselly, like, "I'm really sorry," and she's like fucking going at him. He
She's
explains,
like, "Don't think I didn't feel your hand there, you little perv."
Yeah, and he looks so like, "Oh fuck." Sneed explains that the dead have started walking. Charles Dickens doesn't believe it, says it's all an illusion. And this is where the Doctor snaps at Dickens. He says, "If you're just going to deny it, don't waste my time and shut up." And, you know, that's the first, you know, we see the Doctor snap. When things get hairy, the Doctor can snap. But I think this is slightly misplaced in that if he snapped at Charles Dickens before Rose was found, that would make sense because he's stressed trying to find Rose.
Yeah.
But she's found now. He's, you know, getting the lie of the land. Nothing is in immediate danger right this second.
Yeah, I think it's more that sense of like, this is obviously what's happening. Like, you just saw it happen in front of you, and you're like denying it. But yeah, so it feels very misplaced. It feels like if there was more of an immediate threat at that moment in time that kind of like, shut the fuck up, I'm trying to like solve this, I have no time for your like, oh, I don't believe
if the undead were knocking at the door, yeah, fine. The Doctor explains the rift in Cardiff, says it's a space-time rift and it's a connection to another time and space, and they're kind of touching each other where they shouldn't be, and it causes like a rupture in time. So this is a new
concept, right? Because it was never really a thing in Classic Who.
No, I feel like they never really say this, but it feels like it kind of seems to happen in the 21st century, like the rupture happens.
Yeah.
Because, not to give away too much, but at the end of this episode they kind of seal it, but it like leave it like a scar rather than a fully open wound of a time rift. Yeah. So yeah, for those who are uninitiated, there is a time rift over the bay in Cardiff, right where that nice, I think it's the post thing is. It's got all the names engraved on it. I think it's right there. That conveniently in a really beautiful place to shoot Doctor Who. That's where the time rift is.
Just be careful when you're there, you know.
Yeah, and then we get Torchwood, the spin-off later, and it's based there because things fall through the time rift. And it's not constantly touching the same place in space and time. It's like that is always moving. So they get different aliens and different things fall through. Dickens goes to investigate how the trick was done, and he's looking around the funeral home and he's looking for wires on corpses, and the Doctor tries to explain to him, no, you know how like when the body decomposes, it fills with gas, and these creatures are made of gas. So they kind of get themselves in, and he literally uses the phrase, can drive dead bodies like a vehicle, like your driver and your coach. It's like, this is the first time, it happens fairly often through Doctor Who, where he explains something in a really weird way that can make sense to some of the audience as well.
Yeah.
This is the bit, this next scene is where what got the actor on board to play Dickens was, they talk about the social causes that Dickens was active in, because he wasn't just a writer, and people don't want... He was always concerned that Dickens would be just like, oh, I'm a Victorian fop writer, but actually he was very socially conscious and did all this stuff. You know what, I've not looked into it, but this is what I read that he wanted it to be.
Yeah. No, I'd say like they treat Dickens like with a lot of respect, and I think for like well, he has a cameo like way down the line, but for like a one episode appearance, they make him such a really well developed character. And I think that's a strength of like Doctor Who, like when it's based off like historical figures, and they just like have them for one episode, they're able to get so much in and like treat them like a real person, not like, oh, these are all like the things they're well known for, let's just like base a character around quotes or whatever.
Yeah, give them some depth and stuff. We'll get onto this in probably 2 years' time. But in the episode with Shakespeare, there's all this theory that Shakespeare was at least bisexual, and they obviously drop that hint, don't they?
So there's a point where Gwyneth and Rose are talking, and Rose again being the working class hero, literally just saying like, oh no, like how much asking her how much she gets paid. She's like really shocked about like just the difference is like, she's like, I get paid £7 a year. She's like, that much? Like, I know. Like, I was expecting less. And
yeah, I think she says 8, and she'd have been happy with 6. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
But that is also, that's inflation, Rose. Don't think of it.
Yeah. Not one to one.
Yeah.
And then Gwyneth was talking about how she went to school once a week, and Rose was tells her about the times where her and her friend would just sneak off and look at boys, and she's encouraging Gwyneth to like, at least she doesn't need to work for Sneed, but Gwyneth's trying to explain that Sneed's actually been kind to her, especially since both her parents are dead. So he's been looking after her since she was quite young. And then this is when like she starts like letting things slip that to Rose that she knows where she's from, and then she looks into her mind and mentions seeing the big bad wolf.
Well, she mentions a few things. She mentions that she knows she lost her dad, and Rose hasn't mentioned this even to the Doctor at this point, I don't think.
No.
And she then explains what she can see modern London in Rose's mind.
Yeah, like how everyone is flying.
Yeah, and the metal boxes on wheels and stuff.
Yeah.
And the full quote is, the things you've seen, the darkness, the big bad wolf. And there it is, the next reference to Big Bad, the Bad Wolf. We saw it in the last episode as well. We heard it, from the Mox of Balhoun in a little just like it floated past him and he said the Bad Wolf paradox, I think he says, or something like that. And then it was only in the novelization of Rose, but the Bad Wolf is mentioned in that as well. So we've kind of this constant mention of Bad Wolf. And for those who don't know, those who maybe watch along or listen along with us before they've seen or anything, the Bad Wolf is an overarching story for this season, and we'll get to it. Yeah,
we'll get to the lovely reveal. But then it's revealed that the Doctor's been listening to the conversation the whole time, and he proposes a seance.
Yeah, he says that she's got this sight because she's lived under the rift, and the rift is growing stronger or like tearing open more, so that's why her powers are getting stronger.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have a seance, and we get maybe my favourite line of the entire episode at the seance.
Is it what under Shakespeare?
No, that's
earlier. Way earlier, yeah.
Yeah. No. Tim, I am a father now. I like dad jokes.
Oh, God.
And when Charles Dickens goes to leave, we're like, this is all a hoax. Like, seances are a hoax. And Rose says, I'll give her a chance. Then the Doctor says, yeah, don't upset her. I love a happy medium. And Rose just looks at me and says, I can't believe you said that. And he's just got the biggest grin across his face. Such a good joke. So, yeah. I like this. This isn't as quotable as the last two episodes, but that is a good line. There's a few good lines.
So they have their seance, and blue vapours begin to fill the room, and mainly around Gwyneth, and they reveal themselves as the Gelf, and they basically explain that the Time War ravished their planet and basically left them without any physical bodies to live in. And this obviously strikes a nerve with the Doctor, because the moment the word Time War is mentioned, you can see on his face that he's already looking guilty, like, I've caused this.
And then we also get the fact that they says they're like, there's very few of them left, and he at this moment believes he's the last of the Time Lords.
Yeah.
And there's an 11th Doctor quote where he says something along the lines of, I know what it actually means to be the last of your species. It sits deep in your heart.
Yeah.
Or hangs heavy on your heart, something like that. And that kind of all encapsulated in the look that the Doctor has on his face at that moment.
Yeah, so their Gelf asked basically a fused Gelf to come over and use the body of corpses, and Rose is like, no, and the Doctor's like, why not? And I think that's just more of his guilt taking over rather than like thinking like logically kind of thing.
I disagree. I think it's very logical. Like, he explains to Rose, like, do you have an organ donor card? And not to be funny, if like, especially back in the Victorian times, there's a lot of people that were, destitute, no families, no nothing. Why? And even the people that did have families were like, why would it not be a good thing if, as long as the Gelf somehow, the bodies didn't decompose as they went around?
Yeah.
How would it not be like a positive thing to like reuse the body?
I think because I'm seeing it from the point of view as I know that the Gelf are evil.
Yeah,
Somebody's already watched the episodes.
Yeah, I'm going from the point where at this moment, you think of them
from that point of
as...
view, yeah, absolutely. But I was thinking from the point of view of like, well, I know they're evil. This is a bad idea.
From the point of view that they could be legitimate, like, asylum seekers.
Yes.
Like,
so they go down to... If I not read the morgue, it's like just the basement.
Well, they call it the morgue. The Doctor has to explain to everyone that the Gelfs aren't ghosts, they're aliens. And Gwyneth volunteers to be the conduit for the rift. And the Doctor says, okay, where's the most activity? And he says, the morgue. And Rosie says something along the lines of, oh, there's no chance you were going to say the conservatory.
Yeah. So Gwyneth like stands like basically in the set like under an arch in the morgue and opens up the rift, where she says the most powerful when the Gelf come over, and this is when the Gelf go from blue, like one then goes from blue to red, and it's revealed it's not a few, it's a few billion.
And they're going to take over the world. There's a really key bit of dialogue I think you've jumped over there, which is Rose says, I know this doesn't happen. I know the Gelf don't come through because there's not corpses walking around in 2005. And the Doctor explains that time is always in flux. Every second is always being slightly rewritten here and there, and that everything you know can change.
Which is interesting, because I think this is before, like, well, obviously Stephen Moffat came up with the concept of fixed points.
Yeah. Oh no, there's David Tennant and RTD. There's definitely fixed points about that, because
oh no, there's a fixed point. There's a fixed point.
Yeah.
There's a fixed point later in this season. What am I on about?
Yes,
Where's
exactly. It's the concept of a whole episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting that less crucial points to history can be rewritten over and over again.
Yeah.
And it seems like if something big enough gets into those points, it can then throw everything out, including the fixed points.
Well, I was going to say, like, the Maestro episode of Shooty series.
Yeah. Well, I've got some more things about that later in some other notes, and we'll talk about it.
So, yeah, as it's revealed, the Gelf are evil, and they start infecting all the bodies. One of them is reanimated and kills Sneed, and then his body's possessed by a Gelf. And there's a bit like when all the Gelf are flying everywhere, the Doctor goes, I think it's going a little bit wrong.
State the obvious, mate.
So Charles runs because he's like, I'm not man enough to fight this, leaving the Doctor and Rose to fend for themselves. Rose and the Doctor get backed into like a small room, like being sold off by a gate. But as Charles is running away, he notices one of the Gelf's spirits like flies into a lamp outside, and that's when he realizes it's gas that they're affected by.
And obviously he's an intelligent man. Like, he's upper class, he would have been well educated at the time, so he knows a little about science and the way gas reacts when a room's flooded with other gas.
Yes.
So the Doctor explains so Dickens runs around their house turning on all the gas lamps to full, and he runs into the morgue and explains he's turned up all the gas lamps, and the Doctor says something along the lines, it'll pull them out of the bodies like poison from a wound. So it's to do with the same way that, like, sending. So I don't know if you've ever used like an electric air pump, right? And if you put it into something big that's inflatable, you actually end up with like this attachment that actually just sends air across the top of the attachment, and that actually pulls the other air out. And I think it's that same theory. I don't know what the scientific name is, but I know what they're talking about. They don't go into it in any detail here, but that is the same concept, I think.
There's also a bit right before Dickens comes in where the Doctor and Rose are talking, like, thinking they're about to die, and Rose is basically, I'm going to die before I was born.
And then the Doctor says, I'm going to die in a basement in Cardiff, and he looks really upset by that.
Yeah.
Rose and the Doctor, just before Dickens comes in, have decided they're just going to run up there and try and fight and get out.
Yeah.
They're like, well, fuck it, like, we've got to try something. And that's when Dickens comes in and says his plan. So there you go, there's another moment of, like, Rose being like, come on then, let's fucking go.
Yeah. So as the gas is like filling up the house, Gwyneth basically says she'll light up a match and kill and blow up the girl. So then because they can't go back through the rift, she'll just kill them all. And so while Rose is like, no, don't do it, the Doctor's like, I will make sure she's safe. You get out of here. So her and Dickens leaves, and the Doctor notices there's something wrong with Gwyneth, feels her pulse, and goes, I'm sorry, and runs and leaves Gwyneth to blow up the house. It's then revealed by the Doctor when he's speaking to Rose and Dickens that she was dead and probably died the moment she entered the archway.
Yes. So I saw a few things online saying this is like an error, because like, why would she still light it if she was already dead? But it was established in an earlier scene. So, what was the name? Mrs. Peace.
Yeah, Pierce.
Her body with the Gelf inside went to see Charles Dickens because she already had before she died, she had tickets to go see him.
Yeah.
So some part of the mind, when the Gelf comes in, still fires off. So some of the neurons still go, and they're like, I'm supposed to be there. So that part of the brain, there's a small part of Gwyneth's brain that was like, I can finish this. There was still just enough in there. Maybe the energy of the Gelf themselves kept the neurons firing, even though the body had started to die. As she goes, and lights a match.
it's
and
the
blows
idea
the
that
fucking
she's
place
so
up.
like she's so strong with her clairvoyance that it's like she almost had like more self-control than the
Maybe
others.
I just assumed it was like they'd already set the stage that someone who'd been their body had been taken could still have some modicum of control from their the last activities of their brain. So they had kind of put that in place to make it make sense. But I'd seen a few things online in doing the research for this where people were like, it doesn't make any sense. I was like, well, they did put something in place earlier.
It made sense. I've never watched that bit go in. No, that doesn't make sense.
People look for things not to make sense.
Yeah, true.
Where is it? Yeah, the Doctor comes out and tells Rose that Gwen was already dead, and that blowing up the Gelf as they're gaseous as they were still filing through the rift. So essentially, the Gelf were like some of the Gelf were still coming through the rift, and that's when she blew them up, and that apparently kind of made the rift implode a bit and seal back together with just like a small bit of energy coming out, which is what we learn later can still power the TARDIS. Gwyneth is another person, so the second in 2 episodes, who has purposely sacrificed themselves in some way to help the Doctor's cause. Now, admittedly, she died thinking she was doing good to help the Gelf, but the unconscious thing that we were just discussing still goes, well, I'm going to blow everything up and to help the Doctor. Like, you know, I wouldn't say it's as overt as Jabe in the last episode.
Yeah.
Because she died thinking she was, like, saving angels, is the way she put it.
Yeah.
But, you know, she still does kind of, she is a sacrifice that helps the Doctor's cause.
Yeah.
You know what, I meant to look this up, because I've heard the quote before, and I don't know where it's from. Let me have a look. Because Dickens says something, and I'm like, I know this quote. Let me have a look it up. That's it. Okay, so it's from Shakespeare. So the line is, there are more things in heaven and earth than exist in your philosophy, or that are dreamt of in your philosophy. And it's a line from a Shakespeare play, apparently. Which play? I don't know. It's from something. Hamlet. It's from Hamlet. There you go. I did some research on the fly, Tim. Look at me go. You know when like podcasters have a guy just in their ear researching as they go.
Yeah.
We don't have that, so we just have to open Google.
Yeah, we can't afford to pay them.
Yeah, I mean we do this shit for free. The Doctor and Rose head to the TARDIS, and Charlie says he's got a new creative spark, and he's going to write of their adventure. Dickens asks whether his work lives on. The Doctor says it lives on forever. They leave, and he sees the TARDIS leave, and he gets a bit amazed by that and kind of walks off. And Rose says, "Oh, it's amazing! You know, we're going to have influenced one of the greatest writers of all time." And he says, "No, he doesn't finish what he's writing. He dies next year." Which is like, okay, cool.
Like rip.
And that's how the episode ends. Okay, oh yeah, he dies in 1870. So no, whatever you think.
He dies in
he's
1870, but look how happy he is now.
And that was the end of the episode, Timothy. We're gonna jump into some little sections.
Everything ends. And it's always sad. But everything begins again too. And that's why I was happy.
Favourite moments, quotes, least favourite moments.
Well, I liked the building of the relationship between Rose and the Doctor. There was another quote that we didn't say, but it's kind of them two flirting back and forth. So Rose, like, the Doctor's mentioned about how he travels a lot because he had like a big wardrobe. And she goes, "No wonder you never stay still." And he goes, "Not a bad life." And then Rose immediately responds with, "Better with two."
Hey, yeah. She's good at this whole flirting thing, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's got it.
As I said, I liked the characterization of Charles Dickens. I think like you make a 3D character feel like a real person. I think that's like really good writing. Rose again being the champion of the working class. I think.
Yeah, I love that. We didn't even mention it, but she's helping Gwyneth do her chores. She's like doing the dishes. Yeah.
I think there's just something nice about that. I just think the reveal of the Gelf being evil is way too obvious. And I understand it's a kid's show. I understand like Doctor Who is inherently a kid's show because it's like on 6-7 p.m. on a Saturday night.
A family show, they call it.
It's a family show. Like, so inherently that's always going to be the case. I just think it then led to a very almost rushed finale.
Yeah, I
Because
can see that.
it's like they're evil. 2 minutes later, now they're dead.
Hey, don't be evil. You don't get killed in 2 minutes.
And I do think like Gwyneth, like again for like a sort of one episode character was like a real like a nice like tragic character in a sense, because she calls the girl like her angels like guiding her and everything, and now the whole thing that they was like using her for like sinister means. And she's the one who eventually like kills them. It's like it's a really like tragic story.
I agree. I've not got much more on top of your points. You highlighted a couple of things I had written down as well. Favourite quote is still, "Don't upset her, I love a happy medium." That is a great line. But there is also an interesting quote. So when the Doctor and Rose are arguing over whether the Gelf should be able to use the bodies, when they still think the Gelf are innocent, the Doctor explains that travelling with him is a whole new morality and she should get used to it or go home.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. And it kind of makes sense because, you know, he deals with things on such a bigger level than most other people deal with. Like, normally the fates of, you know, species or planets or even the universe. So his morality... He's got... You know that game where they're like, would you, you know, change the direction of a train to save this certain person?
Oh, yeah. The morality...
He literally plays that game as he travels.
In real time.
Like, yeah, he has to make hard decisions. And we see... I think it's more of a trope with 11, if I'm remembering rightly, where he argues with Amy about making difficult decisions on a regular basis.
Also
like the Star Whale
with
comes to mind.
Donna, because Fires of Pompeii is a big one.
Yeah, it's those kind of things, yeah. And it's interesting to see this is the first time he really goes for it. And it's later we find out, obviously, that he made a very hard decision not long before this, or not sort of, we don't really know, but sort of before this. Yeah. And it's interesting to see how much fire it brings into him when people question his decision making. We see it with 11 later. I remember him getting really fired up.
Yeah.
I like that Rose and Gwyneth are almost like yin and yang of each other.
Yeah.
Like Rose is like, they're both working class, but Rose is like the fiery one, and she's trying to bring it out of Gwyneth. And yeah, they've got kind of similar outlooks, despite the fact they grew up at completely different times. And I really like that aspect. So, yeah, kind of go on top of your working class analogy. But yeah, I mean, you made some really good points there, which is unusual for you.
That's who I am. The Time Lord Victorious.
Before I go, I just want to tell you were fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And you know what? So was I.
Tim, Time Lord Victorious or Time Lord Fantastic? Is he a bastard?
No, he's really not in this episode. Like, even like down to like defeating the Gelf, he's not the one who killed him. It was someone else who did it. This is literally just him trying to do what's right. Got basically almost screwed over for it, but then it basically sorted itself out.
Yeah, we see a couple of darker moments of him, with him snapping at Dickens and Rose, but I wouldn't say that brings him anywhere near victorious. He sometimes, with the morality one especially, and then maybe even when he says, you know, if you deny it, you're just wasting my time. That is kind of the attitude of the Time Lord Victorious, but he doesn't act on that attitude. He kind of, if this was, like we said before, if this was a barometer, it's like, I'd say like 95%, maybe even higher, that he's Time Lord Fantastic. But there's a little bit of him where the dark side of him does show, but only verbally. Yeah,
he's not in his actions. He's kind of like just snaps for a second.
Yeah, which, especially, you kind of find this out after... the 2 times he snaps it after he finds out the Gelf lost their bodies in the Time War.
Yeah.
And that obviously triggers something for him.
Yeah.
The effects on the Hooniverse, Tim. There's a couple I've got written down. What do you got?
I got the main one. I got probably 2 that we have of the same. The Rift in Cardiff being the first one.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes the established point for a whole spin-off.
Yes, and then I was going to say Gwyneth having a descendant named Gwen, who also lives in Cardiff.
So Russell T Davies explains this. They're not blood descendants. It's a transposal thing from the Rift.
Okay.
And it's the same reason that, like, so I think if I remember rightly, in the Fires of Pompeii, the Doctor says that, like, Krakatoa blew a rift in time and space. It was so loud, or something like that. And that's, you know, that would explain Capaldi's face echoing through and the Doctor picking it up or whatever. And RTD has basically said this explains a lot of reused actors. That, like, they're around major time events where you know there are ripples in time, and then that the energy of that causes some of their physical features to kind of flow through time and space. And the rift in Cardiff is so intense, and Gwyneth had such a connection to it that there's probably more than one other person that really looks like her.
Makes sense.
In Cardiff. Yeah, that's his thing. It's not a blood relation, he says. Although you would have saved so much of an explanation by just saying, "Oh yeah, great granddaughter." Like, although we do know she didn't have kids, so great aunt, you know.
Do you know, in 900 years of time and space, I've never met anyone who wasn't important before.
Nobody important. Who is your favourite non-main cast member? So not the Doctor, not Rose. Who? I mean, it feels like there's two answers here that could be good.
There's actually 3 other characters in this episode.
But you pick your favourite. Tell me your favourite, and don't try to get.
I put Gwyneth.
I thought you were going to go with Dickens because of the characterisation. I thought, yeah.
I liked the tragic story of Gwyneth. I feel like it's such a well-written, like, 45-minute story just around, because it's weirdly more her story than Dickens, I find. Like,
yeah,
Dickens
you're not wrong.
Dickens, like, is the one, like, the episode is based around, but it's really Gwyneth's story.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So the first few drafts, her roles just got bigger and bigger and bigger. In fact, originally, like, Sneed had a wife, and there was a different person just to be the medium.
Yeah.
But they decided that they liked the idea of Gwyneth's character so much, they kept writing more and more and more for her. And then you're basically right. The end script ended up developing around her. Like, we get a lot of her backstory, like her brother and her parents are both dead.
Yeah.
And yet she's still chipper and always trying to help everyone. And she lives in a time where obviously it's hard for everyone, but especially if, like, being a woman as well. And she's still got, like, a good heart and tries hard. And, you know, she's a good character. I put Gwyneth as well. There was a small part of me that wanted to put Dickens because I did think he was very good. He had a couple of good lines and very well acted. But I went with Gwyneth, yeah.
Tell me the whole plan!
One day that'll work.
Timothy, tell me your plan.
So I gave the plan a 4 out of 10.
Solid, yeah. Go on, explain why.
It's just it's just really basic, okay? I think the problem is the plan, because the plan gets revealed, like, very close to the end of the episode. Mm-hmm. You don't get enough time to fully absorb how dangerous that would be, especially when you see the other times that Gelfs have been in the bodies of, like, corpses. They've, like, left it and, like, gone into, like, a gas, like, flame or whatever. So they never truly looked like a threat. And then with this moment, like, there's gonna be billions of them, it's like, okay, but you haven't really shown me how much of a threat they are.
No, I agree. That is not why I think it's a rubbish plan, though. I put 3 out of 10. The reason I put that is without the Doctor realising there were aliens and setting Gwyneth up as the bridge, this could have taken fucking years.
Yeah.
Like, they're trying to guide Gwyneth to help them pull through, and the Doctor's the one who's gone, by the way, where's the most activity? Oh, down in the morgue. That'll be where the bridge is then. I'm taking Gwyneth down. Without the Doctor, this plan doesn't even happen. Like, if it happens, it takes a long fucking time. Right?
Yeah.
And it's only the Doctor there that sped it up and then ended it. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
So, as far as I'm concerned, it's a shit plan.
It's really shit, yeah.
The only reason it even got 3 is that, in theory, even if it took years, maybe it could succeed. You know?
Potentially.
Humans of the Victorian era would, you know, not have been know how to fight this off. Yeah, not as well educated.
Right then, I'll be off. Unless, I don't know, you could come with me. He's not invited.
Tim, I like to do some research into the characters that get left behind, right? You know, we had the Mox of Balhoun and the Face of Bo and Lady Cassandra, and I did a big bit on Lady Cassandra in the last episode. And we talked a bit about Clive in the episode before. Yeah, in this one everyone's dead, so...
Yeah, listen, my note there is Charles dies the next year.
Yeah, so he does come back in the Doctor Who canon, as you kind of alluded to, in an episode where time is basically collapsing, thanks to River Song, who we'll get to that, we won't go into it too much. Charles Dickens is on BBC News explaining his new novel, which is really funny. In a non-collapsed history, Dickens obviously dies the next year, as we find out. Gwyneth and Sneed die right then and there. It's not like Cassandra and Clive. There's no extra Whoniverse and stuff for them. That's it. All the characters are snuffed out. And I don't think with the depth of the Whoniverse, all the audio and comic and novels, we're going to get this a lot where every character gets killed off. And not meant like... I know Gwyneth is mentioned again by the 12th Doctor in a novel, but only like mentioned in memory.
Yeah.
And that's it. That is the extent of anything anyone else says about them.
What is this? Who is he?
An Easter egg.
Tim, did you read about, did you find any Easter eggs?
I mean, the obvious one is the Bad Wolf one, but is that... have we determined it's an Easter egg, or is it just like set up? Because
I've got it in our next section, which is technically like spoilers for things coming up. Like, these not really spoilers, but because obviously spoilers is such a framework for Doctor Who. Yeah. I like the idea that anything that's kind of a tip-off for what's coming up, we'll call it a spoiler, because Doctor Who, spoilers, is one of the things they do. So I've got two, but they're not Doctor Who Easter eggs necessarily. They're Charles Dickens Easter eggs.
Mm.
So, when Charles Dickens runs away at the end, he kind of goes outside the door and slams it shut, leans against it, and then one of the ghosts hovers around the knocker, and you see the face of the girl come through the knocker. And obviously, famously in A Christmas Carol, Marley's ghost inhabits the knocker and talks to Scrooge. Apparently, they were going to do a bit more CGI on the knocker and have the face come through it more elaborately, but they run out of money, as is the case with these things. So that they still had the ghost fly through the knocker as a reference, and it kind of, you go back and watch it, there is a little distortion as it comes through to kind of show that hint. So that is a definite, I'd say that is a Charles Dickens Easter egg for you there. The other one, now this is like a reverse Easter egg. It's a call back to this episode in 3 series time.
I know what you're on about.
So Donna Noble accidentally
in the
references
Agatha
this episode. Yeah. So she says, we meet Agatha Christie and there's a murder. It's a bit like meeting Charles Dickens and he's surrounded by ghosts at Christmas. So, you know, there's a bit of a backwards Easter egg to a future episode there. It's not, I wouldn't call that a spoiler because it's not really anything to do with the story overarching. It's a silly joke, which kind of makes it an Easter egg, I think. That's kind of also the difference. Is it a serious thing? Does it affect the overarching story? Because then it's not really an Easter egg, it's pivotal. Yeah. Whereas the other way around, if it's silly and it doesn't matter, it's an Easter egg.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You tell me.
Spoilers.
Spoilers, as you just alluded to, things that kind of show off the future. You said the big bad wolf, what Gwyneth says when she senses Rose's thoughts, which is a reference to the overarching story of Series 1. Now, there is something else in that quote that she says, which I saw a theory that he says, it's a bit backwards, kind of going, oh, this could have meant that, for something that does happen a few series down the line. But she says, the things you've seen, the darkness, the big bad wolf. Now, the darkness is what they called the reality after the reality bomb goes off.
Oh, yeah.
So Rose, who was in Pete's world at the time where the reality bomb worked, says the darkness is coming. Like, all the life in the universe is going out thanks to the reality bomb from the Daleks. And they called it the darkness. And RTD probably didn't intend this to be that, but it's nice that kind of, if you've watched up to Series 4 and then you watch this and you go, oh, the darkness, that could be a very future reference for Rose.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And I liked it as well. I like kind of what they call, like, fanon, like, where it's like, or headcanon, where you're like, for me, because she's a psychic or clairvoyant and actually has, like, powers from a time vortex, she's seeing that as well. That's what I am. Behind the scenes, commentary, confidential stuff. Did you get anything here, Timothy?
I got a couple.
Go.
Well, this is the first episode of New Who that reintroduces the TARDIS' habit of taking the Doctor to the wrong place.
Yeah. Which we later find out in, I think, series 5 or 6. The TARDIS takes the Doctor where they think, or she thinks, he needs to be, as opposed to where he actually wants to be.
Because that's the Doctor's wife.
Yes, yeah.
Mark Gatiss' original script was much bleaker, more frightening. It's including more details about the death of Gwyneth's brother, but RTD advised it to make it more of a romp.
Mm-hmm.
Gabriel Sneed was originally conceived to be a younger character, with one David Tennant in mind for the role.
Kind of glad he didn't, because after he chloroformed Rose, I don't think David Tennant's being the Doctor, do you?
No. According to Mark Gatiss, there was originally going to be a scene where the Doctor was mistaken for Sneed's cleaner. Someone would have stated, "I thought you'd be a woman," to which the Doctor replies, "No, not yet," which would have hinted at Time Lord's change in sex.
Which would have been good to have it that early, because we basically didn't get it confirmed until Missy, which is a lot later.
And,
no, in the 50th anniversary special, there's a Time Lord that changes. She changes sex and race in one.
No, that's in a Capaldi episode.
Is it not in the 50th?
No, it's a Capaldi. It's the same character. It's the same character. It's the general character, but it's in a Capaldi episode.
Okay.
And then I got one more, which is actually about the Gelf zombie look. So the actors who played the Gelf zombies had a simple makeup, which was just shading and contact lenses. The production team was mindful that the program was family friendly and decided not to have any missing facial features.
Also, if the dead are meant to be from this funeral home, they're not going to be that decomposed.
No.
Simon Callow, who plays Dickens, I said earlier he played Dickens four or five times before this. One of them was just a one-man show that he wrote.
Wow.
I think he wrote it anyway. There's a one-man show that he played Dickens in. So that's that. You know, he's the authority on playing Dickens by the sounds of it. We've got over the idea that it was the rift that causes Gwen and Gwendolyn to look alike. After Rose's claim that she knows the world, she can't die there because she knows the world doesn't end in 1869. So not only does she say she knows the Gelf don't succeed because there's no corpses going around, she also says when the Doctor and her are trapped in that little room, she knows they don't succeed because she's here, like she exists. So how can they succeed? And there was almost a scene where, and I don't know how this would have fit in. They got rid of it before production. Where you would fit in, maybe this dialogue comes earlier and the plan is revealed earlier, but apparently the Doctor was going to go into the TARDIS, and I've read two different things. One says he was going to show it to her on the monitor, another says they were going to go to 2005 and the Doctor was going to show her, like, if we just left, right, so in theory we're not there to stop the Gelf, this is what happens. And he's going to show her like a destroyed 2005. So yeah, that was going to be in there. That would have been cool. I'd have liked that. I assume budget was a big issue.
Yeah, I think that's what the issue is. Yeah, but again, that's what they do in the Maestro episode with Shooty series.
It is interesting. I've seen a lot of stuff about Shooty series where it turns out because they've got the Disney budget now, there's like loads of ideas that RTD and Stephen Moffat wanted to do that they couldn't do for budget, and now they're just doing them.
Makes sense.
The Rift, which becomes a huge plot device for 5 series, basically, and Torchwood, was only written to simplify the Gelf's origins. Another little thing about the Rift, apparently when the 11th Doctor restarts the universe, and the cracks in time and stuff, the Rift disappears.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the Rift no longer exists post 11th Doctor. The 3 scenes were added because the episode underran. Gwyneth and Sneed talking before they go to pursue Miss Peace, Rose talking about her father with Gwyneth, and then Dickens asking the Doctor about how his work's remembered. So 2 out of 3 of those were written because RTD liked Eve Miles, her performance, so they added 2 Gwyneth scenes.
Good.
Yeah. When a bit of other kind of parallel things happening for you in the universe, when Captain Jack uses his vortex manipulator after he's been resurrected by Rose, he lands in 1869. And a lot of the thing I read was like, oh, he knew, because he's obviously spoke to the Doctor and Rose a lot by this point, that they were there, but he can't cross the path at that point, because it's before he met them. Ghosts, zombies and psychic powers have always had like a scientific explanation until the latest season as well. So in the newest season, the supernatural thanks to the 14th Doctor, has kind of entered the universe.
Yeah.
But at this point, we kind of get scientific explanation, which is like a tear in time and space. Do you know that Dickens's real great-great-great-grandson is an actor?
No.
He is also in an episode of Doctor Who.
Which one?
He is in Family of Blood. He is son of mine.
No
the
way.
boy, the lead boy in the family, that is Dickens's great-great-great-grandson.
Wow.
Yeah. And his name is, the actor's called Harry Lloyd.
Ah, yeah.
And this is the thing you said, right? So I've got one more little behind-the-scenes thing for you. What is it you said about the location earlier?
Of course, it's not Swansea.
So, most of Doctor Who filmed in Cardiff. A lot of Cardiff doubles up for London. They find locations that can double up. They film this in Swansea because none of Cardiff looks Victorian. And it's the one time Cardiff is the actual location, and they film it in Swansea.
Perfect.
So,
Perfect.
It's the first time Cardiff has actually been used as a location on the show, and they don't film it there. Obviously, they film in Cardiff later when it's actually meant to be modern Cardiff, but it's so funny. The first time Cardiff, and Cardiff is the home of Doctor Who, and it's the first time it's a location. It's not actually filmed there. It's so funny.
We're all capable of the most incredible change. We can evolve while still staying true to who we are.
Tim, is there anything you'd change about this episode?
I think it's more. I had one change, and it's mainly because what later Doctor Who episodes would do. I would have actually made this episode more horror focused.
Yeah, I mean, you are a horror boy, horror buff.
But I think it's also like just a case like, well, I mean, in like I say, a few episodes time, we get probably like some of the scariest episodes in Doctor Who with the empty child. But I feel like that you should have like you've had like the comedy like rompy aspect of the first episode of Rose. You have more of like the slightly serious stuff of like End of the World and more like character development stuff. I think this one will be like more interesting to go, let's go horror, so we can show like more elements of what we can do as a show kind of thing. Especially when the next episodes are going to be fart jokes.
Yeah. I mean, not to give too much away, I actually think the biggest downfall of the next few episodes is those fart jokes. The rest of it's pretty solid. But I mean, I feel like RTD was pulling away from horror in this first series, apart from one episode or two episodes, which we'll see later, because he didn't want to overstimulate the horror because it's a family show and then the BBC might not renew it and all that. I had a couple. I thought maybe Gwyneth could have had a little more autonomy in... I feel like she should have, at some point, snapped at Sneed.
Yeah.
She should have been like, oh no, fuck you. And also, I think her ending shouldn't have been... She still felt, although she's the one who blows them up, there's no... And I know she's meant to be kind of dead, but she's got such a dumbfounded, blank look on her face. And I think there should maybe be like a look of determination, just to give her some autonomy. She takes control back slightly.
I can't tell. I almost like the idea that like I said, it's like dumbfounded, like dead, like almost like no expression on her face. I think
but all it would take is like a widening of the eyes, just a like that glum, glazed over look to then just an eyes widen, and then bam, like just something that gives her a little more edge.
I get that. I kind of liked that thing though. It's like she has like very limited control of her body, and Inda's like basically like you don't know like, if this like basically if you said like just her synapse is like frying in those like final moments, she's able just to like do that small thing.
Well, I to be honest, the Sneed thing would have been a bigger moment for her as a character, I think. I also think, just as a slight, and it's only a small change, but I think it would have helped Rose's characterization. Rose should have fought Sneed off at the Hearst. The reason I say this, and the reason it could have worked, is he tries to bundle her in, she says no, maybe even hits him. That's when the Doctor comes running out. They run away in their hearse. They jump on the hearse and try to gallop off. And then the three of them follow the hearse. And then you don't need Rose to be the damsel in distress. She doesn't need to be. She's been characterised so strongly as like a good, strong character and asset to this team. And then why did she have to be the pawn to get the Doctor there? I think her like fighting back and then being like, "Doctor, that guy just tried to attack me. Let's get him." Like,
Yeah.
and I think they took the, and he took the body, and then they all followed them.
Yeah.
Would have put Rose in a much stronger position overall, but it was 2005 as well, so maybe I'm expecting too much.
Even if I change, it feels like dying. Everything I am dies. Some new man goes sauntering away.
Any other doctors you'd have liked to have seen in this position?
I want to see Capaldi interacting with ghosts.
He would have had none of their shit. He wouldn't have believed them. He wouldn't have believed them at all.
Exactly. That's why I want to see that episode so badly. It's like a 10-minute episode.
Yeah, I think 9 and 12 are quite similar, though. I think 12, because he doesn't have any war guilt, is a bit more steadfast in his beliefs, so maybe he would have pushed back a lot sooner.
I think also 12 was like, if you do like series 8, 12, he's just more of a bastard.
Yeah, more alien, isn't he?
Yeah.
I imagine 11 would have been like full of childlike glee to meet Dickens,
Oh, yeah.
and we know that 10 loves meeting a famous person as well, but those two both also married famous people. So
Yeah.
I feel like when there's a celebrity involved, those two are the two that I think of the most, that like kind of love being around human famous people.
Yeah.
The other two that I thought of, and this is like nearly all, basically I'm covering all the modern era apart from the one you said, almost, but seeing either 13 or 15, because of 13's sex and 15's race, they would have also, they've gone to a time where they would have encountered difficulty just because of who they are.
Yeah.
And that would have then made them maybe reflect on Gwyneth more and bring that to the forefront. But maybe you don't need it because you have a working class woman in Rose.
Yeah.
But just as a thought experiment, the idea of seeing Jodie's 13 be talked down to by, say, Sneed, or Shooty's 15 being talked down to by Sneed or someone else because he's black.
Yeah.
I think that would have been an interesting character trait. We see some of that in 15, and we do see it in Jodie's as well. People don't take her seriously, and because she's a woman, and that would have been interesting. I think that's going to be the case in a lot of the historical ones. Seeing non-white men play the character they'd have always had a harder time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, especially the UK past episodes or American past episodes.
Donnie, I'm here for fun.
Now, Tim, this section I like. You've probably noticed as we've been going through. Any sections that aren't relevant, I'm just not talking about them. But this one, I couldn't think of anything. But I didn't want to close the book on you in case you saw something that I didn't. If you did see something, this would be the first time in 4 episodes, though, including the movie, that we haven't seen something. I haven't.
Yeah, I haven't seen any queer reading in this at all. Yeah, I think it's something you notice a lot with like the first couple of seasons with Russell. I don't know if it's just him playing it safe, but when it comes to queer reading, you're not really going to see the most overt, and it's not going to be in every episode kind of thing.
But I think, considering when 15 and 4... No, well, it started with 14, didn't it? 14 basically saying a man was hot.
Yeah.
The internet blew up. It's like, well, if you go back and watch Doctor Who, it's always been camp anyway. And there's always been actually queer coding in it as well. And the fact that we've done a movie from the 90s and then 2 episodes from the 2005 era, and there's been some queer coding, some queer people in it. Yeah. And it's only when we finally travel back to the 1800s that we're not given that. It kind of shows, okay, it's always been there, guys. Like, just it's not in every episode, and now because Shooty's in your face all the time, you're all upset. Shooty's brilliant. Leave him alone.
Exactly.
Tim, you set this monologue challenge. You picked the dialogue. I didn't. I've been a very busy boy with work and my child, and I only watched and did my notes yesterday. So you sent me this.
I mean, I already did my notes yesterday too. No, alright, I picked this one simply because this was the only actual monologue that was in the episode. Like the rest was like more dialogue. So I was like, okay, this one's fun to do at least. We're gonna do one from Charles Dickens himself.
I like that we're not jumping, like it's not the Doctor every time. We've done the Doctor a couple of times now, and we've done Rose.
Yeah.
Now we're doing Charlie Boy.
Yeah. All right. I just decided I'm gonna do this one on a whim right now.
Go for it.
It's gonna be bad, but let's go. Fuck. I've always railed against fanaticism. Sorry, that was a shit. I'm trying to do Ben. What's his name? Christian Bale.
Russell Crowe.
No, Christian Bale.
Oh, Batman.
Rachel, where are they? I've always railed against the fanaticists. Oh, I always loved an illusion, especially the next man reveled in them. But exactly what they were, illusions. The real world is something else. I've dedicated myself to that. Injustices. The great social causes. I hope that was a force for good. Now you tell me the real world is a realm of spectres and jack-o'-lanterns. In which case, how is my brief span here, Doctor? Has it all been for nothing?
Not bad, not bad. I feel you got a bit basic with Croaky Batman. Everyone's got a Croaky Batman in their locker. Did you just like look to your left and look at the DVDs and go?
No, just literally like, shit, what can I do? I don't want to do an accent again.
See, I'm not coming with you on that ride. Let's go.
You're going to do Welsh, aren't you?
Tim, my surname is Davies. I'm currently wearing a Wrexham shirt. But I'm no good at the Welsh accent, so I have to use the Jimmy Carr technique to try and get into it. So here we go. And you know what? I've not even read this. This is going to be fucking awful. Right. Whose shoes are those trainers? Whose coat is that jacket? I've always rallied against the fantasists. Already gone. Whose coat is that jacket? Oh, I loved an illusion as much as the next man. Revelled in them. But that's exactly what they were. Illusions. The real world is something else. Whose coat is that jacket? Whose coat is that jacket? I dedicated myself to that. Injustices, the great social issues. I was a force for good. I keep losing it. Like, even I need to keep Jimmy Carring. Whose shoes are those trainers? Whose shoes are those trainers, Tim? Now you tell me that the real world is the realm of spectres. I've lost it. I've lost it, Tim. In which case, I have wasted the brief span here, Doctor. Has it all been for nothing? You might even win.
You've won it back.
Thanks. You might even win on the technicality that I completely lost it in the middle. You know.
So
it's one of those ones, right? I find like Scouse and Australian and Geordie. If I can get into it for the first line, I can stay there.
Yeah.
Welsh is so difficult. It's got like akin with accents that you shouldn't even be akin with, like Eastern European ones and stuff.
Yeah.
And you sometimes find yourself slipping just a little bit, and then you lose it completely. Welsh is by far the hardest. Not the hardest, but Welsh, I do find Welsh difficult. And I'm glad I tried, because I was like, fuck it.
No, respect. I was never going to try it. So, Bobby, what would you rate this episode?
It's a decent episode, but it's not one of my favourites by a long chalk. If I'm doing like a random rewatch where I pick episodes, this never makes the cut, right? I'll watch Rose. I might even watch The End of the World, but I will never watch this episode. This isn't one of those ones where I go, I'm going to watch a random couple of Eccleston episodes. Never this. But if obviously I'm doing a full rewatch, which I've done a few times, that's the time this gets picked up. So say I've watched Rose maybe 10 times, maybe a couple more than that. I've probably watched this maybe 4. This may be the 5th or 4th one. Time of rewatching. But it's not bad. It's not shit by any means. It's not, it's not bad. I gave it 5 out of 10.
Yeah, same boat.
Just down the middle, straight down the middle.
Same boat. I gave it a solid 5 out of 10. Not to say it's like a bad episode, but it is my least favourite of Eccleston's run.
Yeah, I can see that.
I do find it to be the least memorable, but as we said, the things we liked about it, the continuing development of Rose and Doctor's characters, Charles's personification in it, and Gwyneth's like character arc. It has some really good things in there, but I just think it gets really bogged down by just being a very basic story. And I think with the Gelf just being just a really bad villain, like, there's a reason they haven't been brought back.
I understand that RTD wanted to go to the future to the past back to back in Rose's first 2 outings post introduction.
Yeah.
But, and I said this in the last episode, sometimes a simple story can really work for Doctor Who, but 2 simple ones on the trot,
Yeah.
it's like, okay.
But thankfully, from like now until the end of Eccleston's like stint, it gets just better and better. I think
More heavy sci-fi.
Yeah, more heavy, very consistent writing. I find.
Yeah, it's good. I actually enjoyed rewatching it for the first time in years.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've watched it in maybe 5 years.
Yeah, I did enjoy the rewatch. I think like, again, as we said, it's not a bad episode. It's just not a strong episode especially when everything else it contends with in this season.
Yes. Some of you may notice there's a bit of a... We did say we were going to try to do this every 2 weeks. There's been a bit of a gap. We've decided that like I'm very busy with work and my son. Tim's busy getting pissed and doing karaoke.
And working sometimes.
Sometimes. So we're gonna still aim for roughly every 2 to 3 weeks. But if there ends up being a 3 or 4 week gap, don't come at us. It's still gonna come. We're not... There's... Even if you see like a 6 week gap, we'll probably put out something on the socials, but it won't, not on Timey Wimey anyway. We are still going to be doing Primeval on the main timeline, but Tim's got a little bonus for you that we're going to throw in as well.
So, in the spirit of us talking about Charles Dickens and it's coming up to December, I think it's time for us to cover the second greatest Christmas movie of all time. That being A Muppet's Christmas Carol.
Oh, great choice, Timothy. Great choice. I think you've picked like every Christmas one we've done so far, but great choice.
I think we've only done 2, haven't we? Because we did Jingle All the Way last year.
Oh yeah. Well then, you have picked everyone.
Yes. Yeah. As I said, I think it is the second greatest Christmas movie of all time. It's utterly fantastic, and in the spirit of talking about Charles Dickens, why not continue talking about probably his most famous work?
Yes. Yes. You can find Timothy on the socials at where, Timothy?
You can find me on the Instagram, the TikTok, and now the Blue Sky, because like many people, like over 17 million people, I have left X.
Yeah, I was actually doing some reading about Blue Sky today, and that is my plan too.
Yes. So you will find us on You will find me on those social media platforms.
I'm hoping I can get my usual tag of @bdavies_creative.
I was able
I don't know how tags work on there.
I was able to get the Tim Martini up there, so...
Yes, I am that currently on X, but again, probably won't be for much longer. Instagram, been doing lots more work with wrestling, not just with Purpose, but with FPW and WrestleForce. And I've been doing some artwork as well with some pretty cool wrestlers. That's pretty fun.
And Jordan Said.
And Jordan Said, yes. So come find me at that's you, you're I'm just bdavies_creative. Find me there and follow me. And to follow us, we are still at CC Society Pod. We don't do tons on socials, but we do bits here and there. If you want to contact us, we will get the notification. So, if you want to do that, we've got an email address, which is, I think, ccsocietypod@gmail.com. Am I right, Timothy?
Yes, that's correct. And I'm guessing we'll also get ourselves set up with Blue Sky and get ourselves not off X, but we'll just divert our attention.
Maybe we'll come off X in the future, but for the minute, there's a nice little Doctor Who community on there that I sometimes interact with. So
yeah, we want to keep interacting with you guys on there, but we'll also be interacting with you guys on Blue Sky now.
Yes. And what's coming up next, Tim? What's the next episode in Timey Wimey Rewind?
Oh, gotta make sure I'm saying the exact episode, because
it's a two-parter, isn't it?
It is a two-parter. The first two-parter of the new series, and we'll be tackling Aliens of London.
That's good, because I definitely would have said World War III, which is the
I was going to say World War III, that's why I had to double check. But
Yes.
I am excited for that one. I alluded to the fart jokes, but I do like Aliens of London.
I like the arc of the next two episodes for sure. I'm looking forward to getting back to some more just aliens invading Earth, good old fashioned Doctor Who.
Exactly. But until then, I have been Timothy Martini.
And Boyo, I'm off down the pub. That was awful. Apart from the Boyo worked.
We'll see.
No, hang on. 1 second. I knew this when I was younger, and I don't remember it now. Now, my pronunciation's probably off, but here we go, which is Hwyl Fawar, which is Welsh for goodbye. I used to know that as a kid, and spent a lot of time in Wales, but my knowledge of any of the Welsh languages just disappeared.
Way more knowledge than I have, but thankfully we're not going to need it in the next episode.
No, we're not back in Cardiff for a while, I don't think.
Thank God.
No, we are actually at the end of the series, this series, but you know.
Yeah, it's going to be a while though, so it's fine.
Alright, thanks for listening and watching.
Bye.
Two tales they find from deep in Doctor's mind. Rose and Doctor save the day in their very own way. From the rift across they fly to see the spirits cry. Victorian's a haunting place, full of terror and grace. With Bobby and Tim at helm, guide us through this realm. Timey Wimey Rewind Show. Where did the spirits go? Listen close to tales they find from deep in Doctor's mind.